Look at the size of these bones.
Thanks.
Might light one of them. I smoke more different kinds of weed over here than I've smoked in my life.
It's a nice little assortment.
They got a couple of good growers too. They got a couple of good growers.
Unless you loosen it up.
I got some.
It's all about the strain.
I got some from them.
You know, the people, they do it right. It's about the strain. And I think a lot of people go on a natural dirt.
With a cure. I mean, there's so much good weed now. We're all spoiled. That's some nice shit, though. Nice little resin ring right there.
Just don't want it so far over your face.
Oh, no, I'm good, man. Oh, okay, gotcha. Why? Where's the camera right there?
Yeah.
Little sour at the end coming out.
Yeah.
Does it have a little of that crazy leaf looking little piff lineage in the bag in the appearance? Shit's all looks like someone just woke up and didn't comb their hair yet. That piff, I love it, man. I grew up smoking that shit in New York, man. That haze.
He's from Massachusetts?
Queens.
Where?
Oh yeah.
Where you from?
Queens.
Oh, New York.
What? Which one? Nah.
That's where Eddie Murphy was looking for his bride.
It sure was.
Queens.
I'm from right near McDowell's. I got a little McDowell's hat I could have worn.
What's
So this is what you do pretty much 5-7 days a week?
Smoke weed?
No, well, everybody smokes weed, but I'm just saying.
I also run something called the Boston Institute for Nonprofit Journalism. So my other half is doing like serious, hardcore investigative reporting about
Really?
Yeah, environment, police, fucking.
Oh, well, you gotta be careful with the police.
I got the head of the State Police Association of Massachusetts locked up for 2.5 years.
All right, I'm gonna smoke this butt.
Oh, that microphone's in my way.
And
I'm
that's
gonna
of course
smoke
with
this
Andy
butt,
mentioned.
and then I'm gonna start the show. Yeah, one of the last shows, the dude was locked up with my buddy in the feds, and he's part of like this Freedom Grow. He invented that Freedom Soda. He came up with this Freedom Soda.
It's actually good.
That hemp-derived soda.
Oh.
That portion of the proceeds go back to inmates with non-cannabis crimes and fucking.
I'm good. I got
We
a whole
actually
one
had two
over
of the
here.
inmates
Lee, we
call
good?
in from,
Really?
from the jail while we were on the set. One dude with a 40-year sentence, and one dude with a 60-year sentence.
40-year
I
sentence.
cover the prisons in Massachusetts. That's the other beat that we cover the shit out of, like nobody else.
It's fucked up, but if you catch a state murder beef, in some states you get 15, 20 years, and this guy got a conspiracy charge.
Hey,
Talking about
40
Edward
years.
60
Hey, didn't get busted with anything.
What with felony murder? Oh, weed?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Edward
we-
Rubens and another guy in Georgia we talked. I mean,
Conspiracy
Texas we talked
charge.
to.
You know what I mean?
Parker
And
Coleman.
he got one guy got 40 years and one guy got 60. But then if you catch a state murder case, that's what I was saying. If you got a state murder case in some states, you only go to jail 15, 20 years.
Well, John-
Yeah. Black neon. Out the mud. Before I get it out the mud, I stay on top of my fitness and hit the shower, clean it up, and then get back to the business. I don't care about who did it, I ain't worried who didn't. I head directly to the back, so I'll be there in a minute. I got expensive taste. The rollie got a different face, for surely I be in them places they won't let you pass the gate. Posted up, sipping $1,000 scotches with the rock in it. Look.
We got the man on the beat here, Chris Faraone, Talking Joints Memo, the How You Doing show. Ricky, Uncle Plump.
How you doing? How you doing?
This is a nice setup, man.
Not bad.
Dig it.
Tacky.
Tacky. Rob thinks it's too
Tacky.
tacky.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have the good equipment from the get go. I mean, it blows me away how successful some podcasts are before they ever even get. I mean, Chapo Trap House, which is probably my number one. They must have done 1,000 episodes before they got decent microphones. The number one thing, they're the number one grossing entity on Patreon. And I was like, will you guys buy a fucking microphone for crying out loud?
Yeah, I figure we have you come on the set, get the feel, hang out.
This is
before,
nice.
Get
And
comfortable, you know what I
prosciutto.
mean?
It's
Yeah.
the first podcast I've ever done with prosciutto.
You out there, you take my old lady,
Fucking
Lauren.
very pizza. The whole pizza was good, by the way.
Yep, little good bar pizza.
It was like a
Cornerstone?
Greek-sized Italian pizza, but it was
It
good.
was small.
I like.
Only good when it's hot.
Good crust.
I have no listen. I may be from New York, but I like almost all pizza. Roller rink
Which
pizza.
one you still you
fucking-
miss any pizza spots from New York?
Yeah, but my spot. I'm from the part of Queens I'm from has a place called VI Pizza, which has these. They're like thin Sicilian slices, and we always suspect that it's potato bread. There's something special about it, but
Okay.
it was pretty well known for a while because when Giuliani, intelligent people always knew he was an asshole, but he didn't have a lot of scandals. People loved him when
All
he was
successful
mayor.
people are.
Well, white people loved him when he was mayor. Anyway, so he had a little scandal because he got caught using his driver to go all the way out to Queens to get this pizza.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's like way before like social media. You can imagine though at the time.
So this is good pizza.
It's amazing. You couldn't even get to my own pizzeria. People were coming from all over New York State because there's like
For that pizza?
Yeah, well, if it was so good that the mayor of New York City is having someone drive an hour and a half each way to get a pie,
It's got to be
Right.
pretty good.
it's more. Yeah, he's just a tyrant.
Just think of all the things they've all done over the years, and there's no social media now.
Dude,
there's
what a
cameras
fat
everywhere.
ass, dude. Has somebody go over a fucking 3-hour fucking drive to go get fucking pizza?
It's like
You fat
Puffy with the
fuck.
Junior's cheesecake, right?
I guess if you can, you can, right?
Hey, I would do it too.
How did you get into journalism? What put you on the path to journalism?
I was a music journalist for years. I was hip hop only. I still only listen to hip hop. Like literally, don't have one fucking record. I think I have a Rancid record.
Dipset,
Well, so
all the guys from New York.
I actually, you'll have to Google this because it always sounds like bullshit.
Chris, were we a C,
I've actually-
D, A plus student? What's going on over there?
100 on everything always.
Yeah?
Yeah,
boy.
I'm a fucking nerd.
Did
But
you go to journalism school?
I ended
in
up going to
college?
journalism school, but I started. I'll get to Wu-Tang in a second. But like, I basically, I heard a guy online once. I was like a fucking freshman in college. I was at a lyricist lounge show in New York City, and I heard this kid behind me, like this girl with a clipboard, was like, "Are you so and so from some magazine?" I think it was Giant magazine. He was like, "Yeah." And she like took him and brought him the whole line. So I started calling clubs ahead of time, being like, "I'm coming from this fucking before the internet, you could do anything." And I
Just
ended
to
up
get in.
I ended up getting busted. I got caught, like embarrassed online.
You got blacklisted, did you?
No, I just got it was embarrassing, whatever. And this one show, and then I was like, or maybe my dad was like, "Why don't you just actually do the writing?" I was always a strong writer. I love writing, and that was it. I started writing reviews. The first album I ever reviewed was Smut Peddlers, which was High and Mighty plus Cage. Their bottom feed. Oh no, that was the EP. Whatever that first Porn Again. It's the album cover with Beetlejuice from Howard Stern's on the cover. And second album I reviewed. Second album I reviewed was
I love Beetlejuice.
Capadonna's second album, The Yin and the Yang. But anyway, yeah, I was a music reporter for years. I guess I'll say I've written 8 books, I think, with different Wu-Tang members. Liner notes. Yeah, I did the reissue of 36 Chambers with the RZA. I did the reissue of the Purple Tape with Raekwon. I wrote entire books, spent weeks
Grave
with them.
Diggers.
So music was your first passion.
It was,
basically.
and then so basically, and I wrote about music for years. I still do sometimes, but what happened was, I basically Boston police. This is like 2005 or
Boy,
something.
here the police again.
Boston police had said that
Fucking
you
police.
can't. Here, what's that? Boston police said you can't. No hip hop shows downtown, and they had sent a fax to all the clubs. Anyway, I busted them on it, and it was music adjacent, but it was heavy journalism, and it was
Yeah.
this huge impact. And I just and then you're covering hip hop, and there's real issues. People get locked up. There's all this other shit going on. Not that I wasn't interested in other journalism. At that point, I was in journalism school at BU, and so I just I started writing. You could say the social justice beat, but it's really just.
Started off trying to get into the clubs.
It started off
Yeah,
trying to get in the
right.
club, man, and then over the years I've done just huge. I've been fortunate to be able to, whether it was at the Boston Phoenix for 5 years or I wrote for BuzzFeed long form a little bit. I've been fortunate to be able to spend months on stories, and I still do. I mean, with that the Delta 9, the synthetic THC story. We have a 5-part series on Talking Joints Memo right now. I mean, that's between me and 2 other reporters, well, really one, but there was some other help. We're talking hundreds of hours of work. This stuff is like, so that's really my heart. I do love being back on the beat, covering weed day in, day out, covering the Cannabis Control Commission. A lot of people, it's kind of funny. I think everyone knows that journalists don't make shit for money, but people are still like, wow, Chris, what are you out doing, like reporting? Like, I think people think you put like one book out 10 years ago and like I never have to fucking work again. Truth is, I'm a reporter. That's what I do. It's what I enjoy doing, and it's like somebody with a television show going back to the stand-up circuit, But I love it, and so that's what it is. I really I like the word reporter. because the thing about it is, it's like agnostic. Whatever I've ever been into, when I was into music, I wanted to be backstage. I wanted to meet people. I was a music writer. I'm into weed. This is it's a great way to get up close. And you guys are doing it yourselves now. You know what I mean? So
Surprised Rob didn't perk up when he said he wrote for the Phoenix.
What do you mean, the one the ads used to get the whores out of?
He didn't say back page.
Phoenix had back page.
That was actually a well-written paper.
That was the original
back page?
That didn't get enough, like, notoriety.
Chris, which one put you on the map? Like,
What
which one
story
was the-
did?
Yeah.
Johnny's was a big one for sure. There's the investigative stuff, and then I'll give you just a couple like big ones over the years. It's funny. I've been finding some pretty interesting ones too. I got the head of the Department of Corrections to resign over a whole bunch of shit that I uncovered at Bridgewater. Just horrible, I think dozens and dozens of like rapes and assaults where the guards who did it were the ones signing off the shit saying that it didn't happen.
Oh.
I mean, just I could, so that was a big one. That article was called "Troubled Over Bridgewater." That was a Boston Phoenix cover story that ended up having like hearings on Beacon Hill and stuff like that. One of my big stories was I discovered more than 300 pieces of art that had been stolen out of the State House. Over pilfered.
That was a wild one.
Pilfered over hundreds of years, just disappeared.
Where did they go?
Basically,
Took it home on them that day.
public entities, especially like a state, get all of this shit. Rich people just don't know what to do with it. They fucking die and like donate shit. And states never. I mean, it would cost.
Turns up it was missing
People
from
just
the
taking
state.
shit home?
People just
Is that
take
what
shit.
you're
Let me
saying?
put my favorite example of that was the dome over the State House used to be this beautiful stained glass with I don't know how many towns they had back then. I think it may have been more actually. And it had like
Each town represented?
yeah, you know how like they tied together with the iron, like, is that iron or whatever that is, or it's like
Wrought iron.
It's a wrought iron in between, right?
Yeah,
So they
makes it
took there was
solid.
one for every
Lead.
town in the state. Okay, now each one of these would be beautiful, right? The piece of it, right?
Worth thousands.
It came down in the 80s. Nobody's ever seen one piece of it. Every
they're all inside houses and-
every state
Hey, they're all
legislator.
inside like the front
That's
doors in
Boston.
Newton.
That's Boston for you.
So-
Just go
Hey, they're
on.
all inside the front doors in Newton right now.
So
brother.
I bring this one up because I
like
actually found one of the pieces of art. It's in storage at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. Until this day, it's been more than 10 years. I can't get anyone from the state to fucking help me out and go get it. Although there's a new administration, I'm going to try with her. And I can't get anyone from LACMA. Nobody gives a shit. It's this fucking bust.
And nobody knows how it ended up
I'm
there?
gonna go get. It's in storage. It's not even on display. It's sitting in storage at a. It's like their
That
big.
thing's already gone.
They're
Somebody-
big
Yeah, but nobody
museum.
even knows how it got there?
I know how it got
They
there.
say it's there.
I know how it got
You
there.
talk to the construction
It's
guy.
going
We need
on
proof
over
it's
there.
Well, I'm gonna.
That's
It's
when
one of
no
those
one's
things. Everything was getting stolen out of the State House when this thing got stolen. It ended up getting sold through an auction house in debt. I might trace the whole thing, but basically back then, I mean, even a Boston Herald reporter back at the time, I think in the 80s. They just went in there and started pocketing. Somebody stole the Constitution once just to show that they could do it. And the Massachusetts Constitution predates the American Constitution, so significant document.
No shit.
Now it's in the Mass Archives, but it used to literally just be there in glass. And Boston Herald reporter stole it just to show that he did it, wrote an article and gave it back.
But you know what, Chris, we need more guys like you out there to put like the real news out there.
So I run a nonprofit
Sorry,
called the
three
Boston
sides.
Institute for Nonprofit Journalism that allows us to still do that shit. We raise money, and because sometimes, listen, it doesn't cost that much. Like it does cost money though. So like, most of my reporters who work with, they work in restaurants. They have any number of jobs, but I need to be able to give them at least a couple $100, but a couple thousand for the big ones.
So how do you come up with some revenue for that?
For the nonprofit, we got about half foundation funding, all from out of state because the fucking people with money in the state hate my ass. But then we have individual donations. I mean, we've been at it for a while, so we do more than 100,000 in individual donations, then grants.
So you pay the whistleblowers?
Johnny raised more than 100
So
grand once.
basically, you pay the people that give you the information?
No, we pay the reporters to do
You pay
the
the reporters to
writing.
their job.
So you can pick up
It's
grants?
hundreds of hours.
Yeah, only
I raised-
Entertainment Tonight
no,
pays the
I-
people who are the source of
Here's
it.
another question I really wanted to ask you about. And
Shoot.
Oh, watch out. He put his glasses on. Watch out. This
no,
is a good one.
I seen you doing the 5-part series, but the synthetic THC versus the real THC. What is the process?
Yeah, I mean, I've been talking about this so much in the past couple of weeks. I think I could break it down pretty simply now.
This is the federal hemp stuff.
Yeah, so in
that you've been
2018, in 2018, the U.S. government, at the urging of Mitch McConnell, big fucking chin guy, Republican, which is significant because this is not something you think, but it was for the farming industry. Hemp is forever. Hemp, which by the way is the same exact thing as weed. I was even yelled at for calling it a cousin to cannabis because the plant itself doesn't know what it is. It's just weed with less than according to this bill, hemp is less than 0.3% THC, or really it would be at THC, anything psychotropic. Okay, so in 2018 they said, you know what, anything that's hemp can be shipped anywhere in the country, no more fucking rules.
Problem.
What they didn't, what the Congress, because if we didn't know, I don't think Mitch fucking McConnell knew that there was actually recipes, chemistry recipes going back, I believe, to the 1940s even, to turn CBD out of hemp into synthetic delta. Okay, so this is where we get into it. It's quite easy to turn it into synthetic delta 9. Delta 8. Delta 8 is a pretty easy conversion from what I understand. It's not easy to necessarily balance it and make it so it doesn't make you throw up, but it's cheap. We can do it in the kitchen. Right. But you can also convert it to delta 9. And because the dry weight is still 0.3%
from the original
product, not the product that they turned it into, that shit is shipping all over the country to the point where if we go to a liquor store, any liquor store in Mass now, I mean, almost any one, because I stop in almost all of them looking for these now.
They were hot on this.
They have weed drinks,
and they're unregulated, correct?
They're completely unregulated. They're not taking now. Here's the.
Are you supposed to have a federal hemp license though to sell these products? Technically,
They're not
just tobacco, right?
No, because the federal government basically kicks that to the states, and then the states can regulate as much as they want. Now, a lot of these drinks are coming from Oregon, Minnesota, and they are pretty heavily regulated. Now, the fact that they'll ship them anywhere in the country. And by the way, you got to give props to the OGs. You know who's literally crushing this market more than anybody else, right?
I believe that.
Do you know who is? Do you know who?
The drink guys,
Cheech
right?
and Chong.
Yeah,
oh yeah,
the
fucking balls.
Their product. You said it was pretty good.
Their product's delicious. The balls on those two though. They opened 3 dispensaries in Mass last year. They call them Diasporas. They're in Western Mass. But in addition to doing that, they put a drink into the fucking other market.
I thought it couldn't go. The drink can't go in the
fucking movie.
They have a drink, I think, also in licensed stores. The cans look exactly the same, except one is D9 from regular weed. One is synthetic delta 9 shipped here from Minnesota via California and tested in Utah.
They make the synthetic like they make like drugs, right? Basically, same kind of thing.
Yeah,
not drugs.
No. Well, I mean, it's there are some synthetic cannabinoids. We're talking about
drugs.
D8 and D9 here. There are dozens of other. There's one called like THCP. Well, V is more naturally recurring and has some. We know there's a little bit known about it. There's one like called THCP, which people know shit about. There are guys at the Freedom Rally hawking it, going, this is 30 times stronger than THC, and I'm like, that sounds pretty fucking strong. And I'm not a prohibitionist at all. I don't give a fuck. We were just talking about shit that kills you when you sniff it once a minute ago. Right. I don't think any of this, and that, by the way, you don't hear me giving a lot of credit to like politicians or regulators, but I got to say, the fact that they're actually fairly level-headed about this. Because listen, if one fucking rich kid died tomorrow, we might have a problem on our hands with that shit. But right now they're like, okay, show us the evidence. Like, what, 180 people got sick in the whole fucking country last year? Big fucking deal.
I don't think.
Hey, but look at fucking energy drinks. Nobody fucking tests.
Well,
those
Four
fucking
Loko
things.
did get
alcohol.
Four Loko did get.
That's what I'm saying about alcohol.
Yeah, like a booze.
I've never smoked too many joints and not remembered how I drove home.
Right.
But if I had too much to drink,
people don't really.
Hey, but you were talking about earlier how they test it,
cannabis.
Right? You're talking about earlier about they tested the bullshit about cannabis and all that, but nobody does the testing on friggin' energy drinks. How many people died of heart attacks because of energy drinks?
That's a fucking great point. And we knew what happened. I actually went back into this because when I was going around talking to these liquor stores, it came up multiple times where they said, we haven't had anything this popular since Four Loko. And so I looked at it, and Four Loko they still have like a other version out now that's not like doesn't have gasoline
it's like the
in
Diet
it.
Coke of Four Loko.
Right. So, but those old Four Lokos, dude, That shit lasted. That was a quick honeymoon. That was like a month, and it wasn't just rich kids. Like kids everywhere, were like people in general. I think two or three of those, and you were fucked.
I tried this.
Okay,
Yes.
did you end up in the hospital?
No. I
Heart
only had,
jumping
like,
out of your
3
chest?
those.
Hey, you got
No.
energy drinks breaking windows.
No, I only had like they were strong though. Like they had like an energy drink kind of flavor to them. You know what I mean?
Did it feel like you were on the Columbia marching powder?
No, they're just strong booze.
I still got a
basically.
couple. Maybe we should break them out.
No, I'm good.
So you're originally from New York.
Yeah.
Came up here for school, and you stayed up here.
I did.
Did music editorials, followed stuff. So you're more of like an investigative reporter. When did you fully get into investigating like cannabis? Like what bridged that gap for you to go to cannabis? Like, have you always smoked cannabis?
Well, I want to. Well,
Has
a
there
couple
been an
things.
experience
Well,
that-
yeah. For one, I mean, I will say that I've done some investigative stuff, and certainly enterprise reporting, like the series we're talking about. I will say that I don't get when it comes to the cannabis stuff. Maybe I use some of my investigative skills, but I'm not here to bust balls. I'm just not. It's too easy. I could go into anyone's paperwork and show that fucking this one did this and this one did. Everyone's shit is fucked up. I'm not here for that. I do cover the regulatory agency. We cover products, but as far as the history of it, yeah, I mean, I've been covering every freedom rally since the early 2000s, covering, mass can in general, underground stuff, arrests. Oh, talk about some really great report. I did a story on a guy named John Rocket once. He's the last guy arrested in Massachusetts the fucking night before with a half an ounce the night before weed got legal.
Oh no shit. Did you
No
go and
shit.
interview him?
And they threw the fucking book. Yeah, I spent a day with him. He's like this sad sack. I doubt he's still alive. He lived in Hull. He was like a beer alcoholic. Just a guy, one of those guys who nothing ever fucking went right in him in his entire fucking life. And that story was called The Last Weed Defendant. So I've written, those kind of stuff, those kind of things, and written other articles about other people who just doing like your buddies, like fed time over bullshit. And it's almost as if, I swear, half the time, I know, I'm not saying people exaggerate, but it's often the people who are like really helping patients. Like this one guy he was on a butter train. He was doing like fucking pounds of butter for patients every week.
Right.
It's just crazy. Gene Traunstein, my prison reporter, we're one of the only outlets that actually talks to people when we write about prisons, talks to people who are actually locked up for drug arrest, for everything. But I just want to say, as far as covering weed though in general, what happened was when shit went legal here in 2016 or even before that with medical, I was working for the Dig, working for the Phoenix before that. And I always said I would have loved to have a site like Talking Joints Memo at the time. But, especially then it cost a ton. And even if you had in-house people to have a website, and I knew that all these leeches like fucking... what's the I don't know, Leafly or just
No names.
No, I mean, whatever. Yeah,
We know who they are.
But well, basically, they're not even necessarily media companies, but companies that were doing content to
juice
generate
behind
SEO, right? And I just figured somebody would come in and eat our lunch. I mean, the Boston Globe is an example. They hired 6 reporters, 6 cannabis reporters to right after 2016. They have none now. So they tried to monetize it. They started their own newsletter.
Are they even around?
The Globe is around, but it's behind a paywall. Nobody gives a fuck. It's owned by John Henry.
You sell them articles at all?
No, they're the only outlet I don't fuck with at all. I really,
You don't like them?
I truly hate the Globe. But they're a good example though of how I'm glad we didn't start a site at the time. We did the newsletter. We stuck it out. We aggregated other content too in that newsletter. Now, last year, it's actually a year ago this week, we launched a full site for Talking Joints Memo. And it was one of those things where I wouldn't say it's all business to business. It's not. Every article, the rule is that anybody should be able to read it, whether they are a novice or an expert, and which is tough. It's tough to do that. But basically, it's the market is... when you describe Massachusetts cannabis, or at least from my perspective, we're trying to get money out of companies to run ads.
What do you put events on there and cover
Yeah,
stories?
we cover. I mean, it's not pay. We're not pay to play. So we just need to get money out of the marketplace, so I know when people are spending or not. And what you had in Massachusetts, and the reason that some of these companies that came in trying to do media or some other services and then split, is because how it went was this. Basically, you had a couple of years where there were like a handful of dispensaries, like Netta, New England Treatment Access in Brookline, that beautiful bank. It was actually for 2 years, not hyperbole, actually the most profitable dispensary in America.
Yeah, you just had to stake a flag.
It was as my old business partner used to say, like, yeah, imagine there was one fucking liquor store for Cambridge, Boston, Brookline, and Somerville. You know what I mean?
Like that Home Depot in South
Exactly.
You didn't need no marketing budget.
You didn't need anything, so they weren't spending. So what happens then? Then there's a little competition, and there's some spending. Not necessarily with us, but then there's some. But then what happens? Then they're cutthroat. Then everyone's slitting each other's throats. Then companies like mine do very well. And now we're a little past that, where people are, watching their asses, because we're going to see, 20, 30 dispensaries go out of business this year.
$23 to $5.
Yeah, well, you see, the gram price is through the floor right now, and it all plays out. But it's got to be. That's why it's got to be a long haul. There was one company, I won't mention them, a media company. They stole 2 of my reporters. They came in. I just knew it. I saw what they were spending. I knew what they were paying everybody. I go, where's the money? Unless they have $5 million, they're going to burn this. And lo and behold, it's such a heartbreaker. They fired everyone in like 6 months. It's just a joke.
So
I actually know how to run. What?
They coming back to you?
No, yeah. One got a gig with a national insider thing, and the girl, she moved to New York, I think. It's just, I know what it actually takes to do it. Media, we do a shoestring budget, but like you said, professional reporting, and but then that's where we are now. So we are growing. We have a ton of traffic because so many sites are behind paywalls because we're offering stuff other people aren't. But it's always a slog, and the industry's totally unpredictable.
But you're growing too right now.
We're growing, And by the way, on the banking front, Citizens, I think Citizens Bank actually, which is it was the first top 30 bank.
Take 'em.
That announced this week that they're going to actually, we got to do a story on that. They announced this week that they're going to be doing weed business and
like credit card transactions.
No, that's a different story, and that's a really interesting one. I think a lot of people don't realize, and not like they should change anything, and I certainly do it. But when that little, I want to do a little bullshit piece, a funny list next week called 10 things that you do it. This will be too long for time. 10 things we all do at dispensaries now that we will laugh our fucking dicks off in 10 years.
Oh yeah.
Right. So one of them is definitely like, what other thing ever do you, it almost makes it like makes the illicit market look legit when you like give a debit card and they're like, well, we're gonna give you $4.50 back. It's like, that is the most fucking donkey shit I ever seen. But the reason is, technically, that's a money laundering transaction, and there's a reason that all those machines go down the way that it goes. Since the federal government, the reason that you can't have credit cards, for example, is because nothing can cross state lines. What you're doing when you use your debit card at a dispensary, you are not using it's not a debit card transaction. The reason it has to get rounded up to the nearest 10 is because all that is actually an ATM machine. So the guys who are putting those machines in dispensaries,
that's why it's intense,
are the guys who own ATMs. Now those machines, as far as the fucking feds are concerned, if somebody, like one guy I know has 480 ATMs, but 400 of them are those. But as far as the government's concerned, they're all ATMs.
They don't distinguish between
they don't know. It's just a fucking. It's just a ISP. It's just a number. It doesn't matter what the. So
address.
Basically, what happens is they bundle that all together. So if they do $80,000 in one day for that register.
They bundle it to all the machines.
Right, so they don't even see the individual transactions. Anyway, it's completely illegal. There are other ways to do it. There are people who are experts on it, but it's like everything else in the weed space where if you want to be a goody two-shoes, you might not be around. That's why you see even like really dispensaries that are really professional operations, some even multi-state operations, putting it all on the line and having consumption parties. Because if you don't do it, your neighbor's going to do it, and they're going to be cool, and you're not. And you just got to risk it. And it's the same thing with testing, like we were talking about. It's the same thing with the bullshit testing and lab shopping. It's the same thing with all of this. So, I think I'm glad I'm not an operator, but if I was, you got to walk that line. You got to be careful, and compliance is key. But if everyone else is doing it, you probably have to fucking do it too.
Well, we've been testing a lot of these products. We've been secret shopping. We probably bought over 15 brands, and like 80 80% of them are out of compliance to what we've tested.
And by the way, I got some great guests for you. If you have Yasha Khan from MCR Labs, he'll drive his ass right over here. He has testing data from several states that he got off Freedom of Information Act requests. Wow. He's crunched thousands.
Because he had a problem with the CCC.
Well,
right? Didn't they go to one of his stores and they were like,
he said something a year ago on it was him or his brother said something, I believe, while speaking at NECAN about everything we're talking about the lab shopping, and the CCC mysteriously showed up the next week like fucking gangbusters and ripped the place apart, and they threatened a lawsuit.
So he's on point.
And there's also Chris Faraone from Pro Verde Labs, who's also, we'll talk to you about these issues. He's quoted extensively in that D9 article, D9 series. There are people who are on top of this, but it's also not that simple. The CCC has said under the former executive director, Sean Collins, that they don't care. They go, that's a business decision. Y'all fucking do whatever you want. The labs are like, that's not good enough, okay? Now there has been a directive to tell them how to account for water weight, but they don't have to do it. So we're basically still in the Wild West. It's better than some other states. I think MCR Labs had to close down their Pennsylvania operation. Because it got to the point where like there's Massachusetts, we could complain all we want, but we have 1 million companies. You guys have a company. It's like there are places like New Jersey and Pennsylvania was like fucking 4 companies. Connecticut fucked up their whole weed thing. There's like 4 places growing weed. Oh, it's a disaster.
And New York fucked up too. They gave out a bunch of licenses for people to grow with not one dispensary license or retail license open, and all these people crop their crop, and there still wasn't one store open.
Yeah, well, I'm sure a lot of it's ending up in Massachusetts.
So if you're testing the stuff, right, and it doesn't test out, somebody can sue you on the fact that the matter is doesn't fucking test out?
You could, and there have been lawsuits. We were just talking, there's a lawsuit in Atlanta right now that people thought they were buying fake weed and they were buying real weed, and they're suing, saying, I thought I was getting fake weed and you made me break the law.
Yeah, but so what's the percentage, though? So it's like, hey, we tested this out at 27, and by the time you bought it, it came down to 19%. You can get sued on that?
You wouldn't believe the numbers. The guys who I'm telling you about, like, there's also a guy, what's his name, Jeff, from the Institute for Cannabis Research, I think they're up near Harvard. He has estimations of, it's like millions of dollars of consumer theft, even just in Massachusetts over the past couple of years when you add it up.
So lawyers are going to get into this and get a lot.
They could if they could get 150. If they get 1,000 people together, class action lawsuit who are mad they didn't get stoned enough. I mean, I don't know what the damage is. That's the problem.
Well, we had John Napoli at the Legacy Live music series at Break Rock Brewing, and he said at least half of the consumers that come in to Quincy Cannabis Co. say, hey, I want the highest THC for the cheapest amount of dollars.
They really do.
So if that's what people are judging it on, where's like the Attorney General? Do the CCC not have enough people to monitor this, or like does it take for somebody to report on this?
I would say they're on their way to, but there was, I don't want to get, well, not for any bad reason. Well, there's some internal politics about it. It's like, it's really like a pro-market thing, right? So I think I don't want to put words in his mouth. I think the former executive director, he's not there anymore. His whole thing was like, I don't want to fuck with them about this. Let them fucking have their little crazy tax shit, whatever. But beyond that, it's really just not that. Actually, some of them, the labs say it could be simple. But right now, with like the directive I just told you about, which I think came out in November, that already freaked a lot of people out. You got all this product that's out there. What does this mean? How do we change it? But I think it was a step forward. Even this issue came up at today's Cannabis Control Commission meeting because they had a big thing at TreeWorks this past week with like 30 operators there, and this is like all 16 labs were there, and they all said this is hilarious, by the way, because no other fucking industry, including weed, none of the dispensaries are saying, hey, teacher, we want homework, regulate us more. No, but the testing labs are. They're actually saying, get up in our shit. We want more guidance because this is bullshit. Because without standards, what's the fucking point? You can put on the nicest lab coat, you can have $1 billion lab. Don't matter if not everyone's doing it the same way.
So what are the people doing at the dispensary, like the bud tenders? They have to be educating the people, and they got to be informed about this to educate the consumer at the point of sale, right?
I mean,
anything really to change, like, because if everybody's making money off of it and nobody really cares, and You know,
as we speak right now, there are 3 bud tender events that I know of, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm glad that they're getting taken care of, but don't that's really all marketing. The cannabis companies have parties for the bud tenders, give them weed and shit, and that's where a lot of that comes from. And that's also education and marketing at the same time.
But do they really know what they're talking about? These bud
no,
tenders,
well, some of them do, but a lot of them
skilled.
But they have to have actually tried it, right? You can't just fucking try things in Massachusetts. That's why people read our site. People tell us all the time, thank you so much. Anyway, people fucking find our site every day because they're Googling, probably in line at a store, what do these Pax gummies taste like?
Okay, so you do product reviews and post this on Talking Joints
tons of
Memo?
product reviews, yeah.
Mass alone, the tax revenue surpassed tobacco, right, and alcohol tax?
Yeah, it did. And I think it almost, what's the other state?
Billions.
In New Jersey, I think it almost did. New Jersey, in the northeast corridor here, New Jersey is the second biggest cannabis market, which is like overnight, which is crazy. And they almost surpassed in the tax. But yeah, I mean, even just trends you're seeing. I mean, dispensaries are going out of business too because they're mismanaged and have shitty business plans. But you're seeing weaker, smaller, less profitable microbrew companies just go out like crazy. I mean, that the trend's over. It's just done.
Yeah, just being open and being like the first one to plant the flag and not have to worry about marketing, and you're gonna get all the customers now that there's more players in the game. How does somebody separate themselves right now?
It's a great question. I love this question. It's something I write about quite a bit. I've written, because I see more than anyone. I drive across the state. I interview these people. I go into the grows. I give a couple great examples. One is definitely Blue River up in Cambridge. Anybody wants to see how to distinguish yourself, go to Blue River. People fly from across the country to get the dabs in there. Tony was, famous. Tony, I think Verzura is his last name. He was already a well-known melt maker. Okay. But the point is this. I'm a dab guy. And as recently as a year ago, dabs were only like 3% of the market. Now it's climbing, depending on how you categorize, more like 6%.
That's what I was going to ask.
But
with the smoking electronic
but it could be no, they do. Well, they're all solventless store. That's their other gimmick. So they give solventless everything, dabs, and and they have good branding. But my point is that it's a dab destination. I was growing up. There was no internet. If I wanted a skateboard, I'd go to the Busy Bee mall in a certain part of Queens on Main Street, yada yada yada, right? Yeah. So that and other ones, just places that do something different, that actually separate themselves in a way besides having like a fucking cornhole thing inside the dispensary. Niche. You know what I mean? That's something that a decorator did. You know what I mean? And then you got places like you have places that are really making a killing on what's called in the industry value brand. Okay. People, there are some, well, actually, I'll start with the opposite. You got people like Impressed, who is, I think, by a lot of people's measures, the best in the state. And that's Ralph Greenberg. He was, of course, a legend in the underground game for years. Okay. He's got a family operation. And, he's separate. He gets 50 an eighth every store.
Is he a smaller
it's a small small micro grow. Actually, I don't know if he's technically micro, but it's
10,000 square foot canopy.
I actually don't know how big it is. But
Cambridge has what, 8,800 square foot rooms?
That's the one in Cambridge. Their operation's not there. That's just their store. Okay. But I'll give you a couple other examples. I personally like Suncrafted, which is not far from where we are. They have a really nice store, really cool products. They're edibles. They make them with like the local cranberry growers. They put out a cranberry sauce for Thanksgiving, like a natural one that had to be refrigerated. Probably the best cannabis product I've had in Massachusetts. And if I'm just looking for other examples, I got to always give a shout out to Canna Provisions in Western Mass, who we all know, ChemDog is their in-house grower. So when you have Michael Jordan, literally the Michael Jordan of weed, who is, the most famous, I think, by all measures
in this area.
He put the East Coast on the map, did his time in prison. He is from the town in Western Mass, I forget what it's called, where the grow is. The brand's called Smash Hits. Okay. And even when you walk, and it's part of Canna Provisions, but when you go into those, even besides Chem, when you go into those Canna Provisions dispensaries, it's just like, if you're like me and you know what the good products are, like you're surrounded by them. And it's cozy. And so I just think and also business-wise, they're on the border of New York. So they've been crushing it with the crossover business.
Crossover state.
Yeah, and places listen. When a new market comes on, it takes them a while to get their act together. You know, if you were in New York and driving a half hour to go to this place in Lee, Massachusetts, for a while, you're still doing it because you're fucking. New York's a disaster.
Yeah.
You know, they can't get their shit up. And you know, if New Hampshire ends up having their stupid state weed store, like they have the state liquor store, that's what
ABC stores.
that's what Sununu wants. You know, those will suck. So everybody will still be shopping in mass. So I think that, but I think to distinguish yourself, you got to distinguish yourself. I think, you know, I like all the companies I just mentioned. Some have good distinguishing marks that I don't necessarily love. Some that I haven't really tried. I know, like, you know, Local Roots, Jim Belushi does like a hash, and only a few other companies are doing an old school hash. Some
Rob
people
was looking for.
Exactly. So
like
and you're not even that old, but guys like my
56.
uncle, sure, but I'm talking about like guys in their 70s are
Yeah,
fucking
you take a pin in a
looking for it.
the glass, you light it up and put the glass
Under
over
the
it.
glass.
I think the smartest businesses right now are the ones that are not working themselves up on Instagram and marketing to fucking teenagers in California. They're the ones who are looking at what people in the what's not around in the market right near me and serving it. And then there are ones that are really just doing the great job of growing the shit that people want. Rainbow Belts, Runts. I know a lot of the old heads don't like those sweet strains, but they sell. So, and they have bag appeal. They're pretty, they're purple, and they stink fucking cars up, you know, so.
Who's bringing the earthy, piney gas back?
Well, you know, ChemDog just, we were just talking about ChemDog just, you know, did a run of Piff, New York Haze. And even though he's the most famous grower in the state, they were even nervous that wasn't going to sell because it's got such bad bag appeal.
Right.
Not that people can see it in the bag in Massachusetts, but it's still, it looks weird. You pull it out, it's like, did they trim this? It's stiff. It's not.
The bush.
It literally looks like something you picked up off the floor.
Kush. I don't know if you tried that.
I mean, you know,
Rob
Khalifa.
likes the Khalifa Kush.
I mean,
really
Khalifa
like the
Kush,
taste of
that
that.
gets into a whole other issue of like, and not a bad thing, just like,
But you
you
can
know,
taste
it's
the rock
Khalifa
well.
Kush has been a multiple different things, you know, so
of course it
was
has.
with True Leaf, then Cresco. So one thing I love at covering this industry are the people in the middle who aren't license holders. I think in a lot of senses, they're the smart ones. You know, they're not holding the bag. Think about when a taxi medallion was worth $500,000
Yeah, it's worth like
and
$20,000.
Uber showed up and it's worth a piss in a bag, you know? And it's like, so I think a lot of these brands, these people in the middle, there's a collab group, Sean Curley, friend of mine runs. He has the contract for Laced, like the sneaker brand.
Okay.
So I know Laced Cannabis. It's kind of a funny name, right?
Yeah.
But
Laced.
but what he's doing,
They
what
don't
he
put fentanyl in that,
what
do
he
they?
gets to do though, what he gets to do, and
Bet
others,
you're gonna get extra for that.
others
one.
are sprinkles. Others are doing this too. I talked to a breeder last night who's making a strain for the Coheed and Cambria, the band. And what these companies do is they'll find like growers, like you know your company when you go up and running, or like Tikal, Method Man. Props to Low Key Dispensary in Dorchester. They have the exclusive contract with Tikal. Every strain is actually sourced from a different elite grow in Massachusetts.
Okay.
A Tower 3, you got to give prop. Tower 3 sells that. You know, that's a no-till grow, and they do one of them, I think. Bailey's Buds, also I think a no-till grow on the North Shore. They do one of the other
That's
strains.
where the flavor's at, the no-till.
Yeah,
If it's true
that's
no-till,
above
living soil.
my level. I'm not going to be out here like I only
Yeah.
smoke no-till.
Yeah, no, I'm just
But
saying.
it is
the flavor's
impressive because
there.
I know most people who try it can't pass their tests. They
It's-
can't pass the microbial tests, which in Massachusetts, as we were talking before, is one of the strictest states for that kind of stuff. So if someone's doing no-till weed in Mass, and I'll tell you, when you smoke that Tower 3 stuff, you could put 10 joints on that table. Given I do this for a living, I'm usually not this good, but I can tell you which one of them is Tower 3. It's just unbelievable.
Stinking.
It's stink and River Run Gardens.
It's set that far above.
It is. They're about 5
Do you
grow.
have one on you?
They're about. I don't. The shit I did bring from Orange, they're just got up and running, is really good, but that's a much bigger grow. It's kind of a different situation. I think they're machine trimming. I don't want to say. I'm not sure if they're machine trimming everything, but it's super high quality. And I wouldn't say it's necessarily better or worse. This has actually been really freaking good. But some of the like Tower 3, River Run Gardens, Bailey's Buds. It's like with River Run, they're up in Newburyport. We do their descriptions for their weed. So I do them for some other companies too that actually pay us. For them, we do them for free, $20 or $25 a year. They bring us like a quarter for each strain. Me and my team write them up. We smoke them every different way. We vape them, write the descriptions, interview the breeders. But you know, it's after a week of smoking nothing but River Run Gardens, man, everything else is just totally
Should have
disappointing.
brought some of that shit with
Totally.
you, man.
Everything else
Next time I
tastes
will.
like mids.
Yeah, I mean, and truth is, there's so much freaking good weed, and actually, I actually don't smoke that much flower. I'm mostly
Concentrated
I'm a big
nom
dab
now.
guy. I love my dabs. I mean, it's like the Jetsons. Like, the little pill is your whole meal. I could fucking dab and I'm
Yeah,
good for
it's
2
full
hours.
flavor.
Or else I'm like, with the one hitter, it's like hitting the one hitter 10,000 times a day. Not to mention that this study we talked about may be bullshit, but clearly smoking things isn't the best for you. As I get the joint passed to me,
Right. You'll be all right.
I'll be okay.
The people that get into it for the money, right? If like, there's a lot of people that just get in it for the money. Don't even smoke weed.
Sure, they're the bros.
Right?
Think,
And that's a lot of people. If you really think about it, the
Of
majority
course.
of it
Corporate
is
America.
the money behind it. They're not smoking it.
Of course,
right?
but they let their fucking guard down. I'll tell you why. Because if you would go up to the country club, if you were to belong to one, and throw a business,
I do.
no, I'm not
Yeah,
either.
what are you talking
Well,
about?
that's
I
where
belong
these
to a
investors
country
hang
club.
out at. I'm assuming, right? So my point is this: if you were to go up to the country club and throw a business proposal for any other business besides weed, right? And that business proposal, whether it's a liquor store or a fucking restaurant, and it was the same exact thing as every other place. You think a millionaire is going to sit there and give you $5 million? Of course not. But with weed, it would pigs at the trough. All these guys who smoked weed maybe in college.
Right. They saw all this money is what they saw.
I also compare it to the restaurant business or the movie business like Johnny's in. I'm not saying people don't want to make investment money on their investment, and certainly a lot of them didn't expect to lose their shirts the way they are. At the same time, nobody wants to lose money, but with a dispensary, it's like a restaurant. Hey, buddy, check it out, my dispensary.
Right.
I go to these openings. I see, you know who they are. They're like the fucking short, ugly guy with the fucking $500 sneakers on, who everyone's acting nice to, even though he's a troll. That's that's like that's that fucking guy.
That's the marketing MO.
No, yeah.
You have the guy in the chicken spinning the sign.
Yeah, dude. So people will invest in these things. They'll invest in a restaurant that they know is going to make them a lot of money, so they can tell people that it's theirs. Same with a dispensary. It's a vanity thing. One of our business analysts crunched the numbers that for Northampton, I think. Everybody, in order for all of the stores there to be sustainable, I think everybody who lives in Northampton would have to smoke like 6 ounces a year. It's never, and we've already seen we already saw a company go out of business there. It's like it's like a little town.
Yeah, because they take all this money, this investors, and they hire some yahoos, and they don't grow a good product, and then they just bankrupt and say we've lost and move on.
Precisely.
How many with your
You got numbers?
with your in the field experience? How many of these license holders were actually like legacy guys that were in it before, and how many of them actually are just like had no roots like before it became legal, other than seeing it as a dollar amount?
Well, so great question. I think there are. You can never underestimate. I think it's something that a lot of East Coast growers do. Is like there are a lot of California, Oregon, Washington, Colorado OGs in this market.
Okay.
They got big money. They're cool, mostly dudes, some women too. But they come, it's like God knows they make it $250,000. Come out here, move the family, live in a suburb like exurb like this, get a big old house. That's why you get a lot of more good weed than you would almost think, right? At the same time, there are a lot of places, and you don't read about this because they don't advertise it. Full grows. I mean, Rev Clinics, I think this was public. They had to shut down an entire grow that there was something bad happened. And I hear stories all the time about an entire crop going bad. Another thing with the outdoors, yes, some of these big companies, they set up shop here. They didn't realize that they need someone who's grown outdoors here,
in New England.
Here.
That
Not just
finishes
in the
early.
fucking neighborhood, man.
Yeah.
In the exact area. So that's another thing I've seen. But as far as legacy, I've been around, and whether it's people who are actually involved with Mass Can or just Freedom Rally folk, there's a lot of blood, mostly at smaller companies, social equity companies, because they're smaller places. But yeah, there's a thanks. There's a good number.
Share what? Like
I don't know.
30% of the
I don't
weed
know.
comes from legacy.
Well, I mean, here's the thing.
Roots,
I can't put a ballpark on it because honestly, every company has a million different people on it. So I'd say at this point, people know you need to have a grower that fucking at least kind of knows what they're doing. But a lot of the other people, and I can tell, have no idea what they're doing. Marketing, advertising.
A lot of these people I see, they say they're experts, and then you look at the track record on social, and it's like I worked at a company for 6 months here, 9 months here, 4 months here, and they're calling themselves an expert.
Yeah, and
like,
I'll listen. And until
you've been in the market 2 years.
every
you're not an
situation
expert
is
at
different. Some of
anything.
those companies do suck, and they, you know, they everything's, you know, great one day, and then so I don't know. My point, I guess, what I'd say on that is that it's not all local legacy. There's a lot of out of state. And also, I will always say to people that no matter what, and I try to do this to myself, you're always in a bubble. You know, break out of it. And next, like I just told you, what I think you consider some of the best brands today. I'm sure that after Nican, I'll have discovered another couple, especially ones that aren't in my neck of the woods. I'm always down here on the South Coast, South Shore, even North Shore. But you know, listen, Worcester's the center of the fucking universe here. Right. There's just so. I mean, and honestly, when you talk to Worcester people now, they're like, yeah, dude, we've had this going on for years. I mean, they were selling dabs on the, you know, on the black market in Worcester 15 years ago before I even knew what the fuck that was. So I think it's
shatter.
Shatter. Well, snap and pull they call it, right? Snap and pull.
Like flake, like
yeah. When you went out and you bought that thing, you packed the weed in it. You used the isobutol and you put it through it and got what left it evaporated. And that was the shatter. And that's actually really strong. That's your preference now?
I love I mean, I just like all dabs. I think it's like
one hit for 2 hours, 3 hours.
Beautiful.
He's a dab guy. Yeah,
I'm a dab guy. They're
just
they're just delicious. I mean, they really.
Oh, here's another question about these weed drinks. There's no
Robbie's firing away.
There's no.
Here he goes.
Okay, on the weed drinks, how come there's no regulation on the like the shelf life?
Well, that's a great question, actually. So the big thing with the drinks right now, whether they're the synthetic drinks or the regular market drinks, is that you're going to see less and less cans, because even the ones that are real, you know, good pH balance, and what we understand, what some of these testing labs are saying, is that it seeps into the can liner. So the THC has a pretty, you know, short shelf life. A lot of the manufacturers will disagree, but the tests will tell, right? You got some companies, or one company, Good Feels, they have a glass bottle, which is inert, so that's safer. But I think, like what Johnny said, you're going to see. It's funny because last year I said was like the year of drinks, and then the year of drinks turned into the year of hemp drinks for half the price down the street at the liquor store. But I think tinctures, you're only going to see it go up. People love them. They can really control them, unless you're a savage like me who likes to do, you know, slam 300 milligrams out of the bottle. But basically, I think
I'd be destroyed.
It's going to be a really big year. And also, the other thing, this is the most important thing to note, is that, you know, chill really changed the market. And basically, of course, the cap on drinks in Massachusetts is only 5 milligrams. What Chill Medicated did, Chill, which is a pretty interesting product, you know, it's syrup, and you can slam it straight, you can mix it with water, but it's a concentrate, right? So I think that comes in a 200 milligram bottle.
Like lemonade.
200 milligram bottle.
You can put it in a bottle?
What?
200 milligrams legal in Mass?
Because it's not a single serving.
There's going to be a big market opened up with this. Do you think any of the state licensed cannabis companies are going to fight back? Have they?
They are. They are. They are. It's in the fourth part of our series. There is a bill. They haven't submitted it yet. It's just a disaster. It would destroy the whole hemp industry. It's one of those things where it would fuck up everything here. And I'm not a pro or anti-gun guy, but it's like gun laws. Like, they don't address the actual problem.
Right.
Like with this, it would actually just. We barely have any hemp manufacturers left in Massachusetts in the first place. It would destroy them, and motherfuckers still just be shipping shit in from Minnesota. And it's, as far as legislating that shit away, I mean, Delta 8's already illegal, but nobody's busting down the gas station door. And the reason is that shit costs money. Even though I'm not a fan of cops, but fucking cops aren't like, you know, maybe there's a couple soul crazy people who are, you know, Ramboing on their own, but really, unless motherfuckers are told to, or there's funding to do arrests, they're not going to do it. So right now, the Department of Public Health wants nothing to do with the hemp shit. The CCC, unless they're told, they're not going to do shit about it. And then you have, I'm forgetting, the MDAR.
ATF?
No, that's federal. But in Mass, the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources, MDAR, that's who regulates the hemp market here.
Yes.
And it's a fucking
Federal
disaster,
farm.
because, you know, it's like these people, they can't even sell CBD edibles. So the licensed MDAR manufacturers can't sell CBD edibles, but the guy making them in his basement in Brooklyn can.
Sell
Them here.
So are the licensed owners on the legal market at mass, are they going to use this as a point, like,
Yes.
as positivity to say, hey, roll back our fucking laws? Or are they going to go and fight back against having these drinks on the market?
You know, it's kind of hilarious because it's like it really allows you.
Because you can go both ways with that.
You could,
right?
you totally could. And you know, the whole cannabis program here, and I agree with this, is based on the fact that they were wrong to lock people up all those years, and that nobody was ever. This was all should have been okay the whole time. Well, it's hilarious watching some of those literal companies, including some social equity applicants, turn around and say, "Fucking put these people in jail for selling a Delta 8 lollipop." So that is hypocrisy to a certain degree. Whether they get a bill passed is another question. But like I said, it's not easy to pass. Anytime
things move slow.
But already things move slow. But when money is involved, it has to go through something called Ways and Means, and that means it never gets done. That means everybody has to. If $1 is spent,
people got to sign off, and this
it has more people. It's like doesn't not just the regular committee on weed.
Right.
Ways and Means. Everybody knows. You know, if you've ever seen like the my favorite Eddie Murphy movie, or one of them is where he runs for Congress. Oh, I'm good, thanks. I already have to piss my pants.
What the hell is the name of that one?
Can't think. Why? I'm sorry. I've been.
No, the something gentleman.
Yeah, the Distinguished Gentleman.
Yeah, that's it.
So he goes for power and industry. Which is basically supposed to be like Ways and Means. Like, point being, it's going to be very hard to regulate that stuff out. States that have tried, I mentioned you guys before, in New York, the regulators tried making an emergency declaration, and the courts, the state Supreme Court of New York said, no, you had the chance to regulate this stuff, and everything you're saying is bullshit. Show us the bodies.
And then didn't they do something in Connecticut? But they left
Connecticut,
out a key
yes.
piece,
Oh,
and there was like a hole.
Connecticut
in
is
the whole
hilarious.
legislation.
Connecticut, they tried to. Connecticut, they did basically what I was saying. They're trying to. They ruined the local hemp industry. Went from like 180 hemp producers in Connecticut to like 40 because of this. They can't sell any of their stuff. Meanwhile, they left a loophole open where you could walk into Total Wine and Spirit and get any of the Delta 9 drinks shipped in from Minnesota, Oregon. It's just
being the locals, but
dude,
you can import
it is just we live. It's the upside down. If you watch Stranger Things, it's my kid does it.
Great
It
flick.
is
Great
really
show
it
series.
is. I mean, if you would have told me that we were going to be in this position even a year ago, and that shit was already happening, I would have said, "What are you talking about? This is absolute insanity." But you know, the other thing is like, I feel bad for the drink makers. Stuff's already hard for them. Dispensaries don't want to carry drinks because they're big. Think about what 100 milligrams of drinks is like. Fucking it'll fill up a Civic
energy,
trunk.
electricity.
Yeah, all that shit. And you know, by law, they have to have it gated too. So there's that. So basically, it's costly. They lose whole batches if they don't test right. It's a tough business. And now they're competing with people who have, you know, a third of the compliance. These places still have to.
Could make it in a garage.
Well, they don't have any mass compliance. They have the shit in their state, and that's
We need to
fine.
stop making that shit. There's money in that.
Oh, I mean, I think that you're seeing. Listen, it's like with everything else with business. You got the people who say "fuck this," let's kill them, and you got like, if you can't beat them, join them. You got companies like High Tide, which really crushed it, and their drinks were everywhere last summer. The margarita, they're in the D9 market now. They're launching nationally soon. You got the Melt. They make the infused ice cubes. And they're going into D9. I mean, why wouldn't they? It's a perfect thing. It doesn't have to be refrigerated.
Ice cubes?
Yeah, they don't come frozen. They come in a tray.
They come in like a plastic package. And you freeze and then
what do you call that? Like like the pills in South America, like not Spaniel, but blister packs.
just smoke a bone.
Well, I mean, this is what I was going to. There's a reason, because that's what I was going to say. So the whole argument made now by the hemp companies that have these drinks is that we're not competing with you guys. People who are not familiar with weed, and it's true, they like the drinks. I could get like anyone to have a weed drink. It could be like a fucking most anti-weed person, and they're saying they'll come to us. And by the way, they're not pushing it right now.
I got a few in my refrigerator right now. Freedom Soda.
From
there you
Travis?
go.
Yeah.
And they're
Those are
fives. And
delicious.
the whole thing is funny because they're not taking advantage. Because really, frankly, there's no reason they couldn't have them be 50 milligrams, right? I mean, there's no regulation, but the drinks, and this is why, without, now that we've gotten into the weeds literally on it, the drinks are separate from the Delta 8, the fucking gas station gummies, and they'll be the first to separate themselves. They want them. This is why there's 5 sides to every story. They also, like the dispensaries, want the fucking Delta 8 basement gummy makers. not necessarily locked up, but out of commission. So it's just, this is what this year is going to be about. It's never a dull moment in covering weed, but this was a curveball like I never expected.
So basically, corporate America is giving certain people the money to play with certain other people to make more money for themselves.
Well, Massachusetts the thing about Massachusetts is that even though you have the big companies here, Curaleaf and such, Trulieve left. But even though you have a lot of somebody died, Lorna McMurray.
What happened?
Well,
was it from the mildew and the mold?
Absolutely, and it was determined by OSHA, and there's multiple investigations people can go on and read. They're lengthy, but they're very well. If you're going to be in the biz, you got to read them. One thing that Trulieve did was they spent millions of dollars on this build out of an old factory in was that Holyoke, I believe.
Yep.
But they didn't. It wasn't lined. They were having problems with tests.
So she died from mildew and mold spores?
She died from asthma related, from inhaling keef. Basically, they had terrible ventilation where they're doing the trimming. She did, but she also, it's really big. I don't know if it's determined for sure, but she developed this worse and worse as she worked there. Also, of course, like every other time this shit happens, there were warnings, there were complaints. It wasn't like overnight. But Trulieve, really, I don't think they just handled it fucking terribly. The story didn't come out until Mike Crawford broke it 9 months after it happened, so they sat on it. The state handled it terribly, and it was just, the workers were coming out of the woodwork saying, and then the reports came out when they were already gone, and they really showed it. But what I was going to say is that while we do have a lot of big companies here, and they do wield power, and they have the best lawyers and the best lobbyists, there's so many other companies too, that it's not like these states where, like Florida, where they're literally going to fucking have it basically where you go to jail for home grow.
Really?
Oh, God.
Well, that's where it's going to flip. They're going to start getting you on tax evasion on it.
Yeah, well, that's always been a little trick. But, I think really, so with Massachusetts, nothing is perfect, but definitely I think it's harder for some of the really bad legislation, and then you do see good changes for small companies, like delivery companies are going to get that second driver removed, for example,
right,
because of activism. And there are a lot of other states where you could have like every black operator in the state come and show up at the state house, and they'll tell them to go fuck themselves. But in Massachusetts, the smaller operators, social equity operators, they're actually able to band together and get some stuff done. Nothing's perfect, but
and you may or may not know this. The drinks, say the seltzer drink at the legal dispensary, where is that Delta 9 too or Delta 8?
That's Delta 9, but derived from cannabis, just straight up Delta 9.
Listen, I don't know what the hell you guys are talking about. What the hell is the difference between Delta 8, Delta 9?
It's a different compound.
Honestly, I don't know. You guys are talking like
created.
No, Delta 9 is your regular weed. Is like as we know it, the psychotropic ingredient, thing that gets you fucked up most of the time, is Delta 9. Can anybody be pronounced THC, tetrahydrocannabinol?
Yeah, Delta 9 is from heat and stuff like that.
Right. So it's basically, and it's also when you see the THCA on his tests, that turns into Delta 9 when you're smoking it.
Right.
Pretty good interview.
Thanks.
Yeah. So
very knowledgeable.
So Chris, big reporter here, Talking Joints Memo. Maybe there was two more things I'd like to recap.
Shoot.
The inception of Talking Joints Memo. You got a couple partners.
Yeah.
And then what was the biggest story in 2023 for cannabis in Mass?
Yeah, I think for us, and definitely it was, and it's funny because it's kind of an insider-y story, but people can't stop reading it, is just basically the Cannabis Control Commission like self-immolating, like fucking burning to the ground. And the current chair technically is a woman named Shannon O'Brien now, and she was suspended and nobody knew why.
A lot of controversy.
Just unbelievable. And then the remaining, what happens is when you have 5 commissioners and you only have 4, those votes don't go very easily with no tiebreaker. So there was one meeting where they went 2 hours like fucking children arguing over who is going to be the acting.
That was my next question.
Chair. Yeah. So right now though it looks like a lot of that has come into. The current chair is Ava Calendar Concepcion. There seems to be a lot of competence in play. The other big change last year, and it's not that sexy to talk about, is they changed the host community agreement rules, which basically means cities and towns can't fucking bend you over the pail and take whatever they want anymore. And that's,
I seen one license holder.
Yes, got back $800,000 up in Haverhill
because they couldn't prove.
Was it? that's the lawsuit that's still going, right? STEM. The one that got the money back is Caroline's Cannabis from Uxbridge.
Yes.
So basically, they have
couldn't
to
prove how they were.
No, they have to show. They have to show the impact.
That's what I was trying to tell somebody one day. If you really had to prove the impact from the illicit market weed in the neighborhood to the legal market weed in the neighborhood, this would have to be like a 1,500-page essay.
Yeah.
And these people aren't going to do the work.
So
Really
that's going to
not.
change now. So basically, the municipalities can't just be like, donate to my friend's charity, give us fucking this much money. They still get their taxes and stuff. But really, the Shannon O'Brien, the commission itself, which to me is fucking boring, even when it's not boring. But people really fucking click on it like crazy. The other thing that obviously is big no matter what, and it's more going to be a story for this year, is social consumption. They really, it's kind of interesting. I don't expect people to be following every second of what they do at the CCC. I will say it's a little annoying when people who have no fucking idea what's going on are like, where are the fucking lounges? And the truth is, I don't defend regulators a lot, and the truth is they should have started sooner, but they have been on their grind. They went to all the states that have them. They did the research. There's a fucking team together. People know their shit. Hey. I don't believe in any regulation. I think you'll be able to have it tomorrow. But if we do have to have it like that. They are on the way. And by the end of this year, we'll have the regulations.
It's pretty fucked up because you can only consume like 10 milligrams or something.
Well, there were rules put in place that were like kind of like pending.
A hit or two.
Even worse, there was no flour. There was no flour. So the way that they were written was like we're all gonna get together and fucking hit the vape pen in a fucking storefront. It was the dumbest, unnecessary thing ever.
Right.
And there was also this pilot program attached that was difficult. What they did was last year they stripped all that away, and now they're basically building it from scratch.
Okay.
With knowledge. Now, I will say this:
how can somebody get in on this and put an input?
Well, first license it's going to be like delivery, so they're only going to be available as social equity applicants. So that, and the other thing is, basically, this is not just me telling people to read Talking Joints Memo, but it is because it's just being informed, knowing when.
Fucking tell them.
Well, knowing when the applications actually do come up, not going into it cold, and also, this is the most important thing, and they keep saying it is, and this is the same for any cannabis business, but especially for a social consumption. You better start fucking figuring out where this thing's going to go soon. Not in the way that you should get locked into a lease and pay for the next 4 years. We've seen a lot of people burn millions like that.
Yes.
But in a way where it's like, is this town going to be okay with it? Is this mill building okay? Or is it flammable? So just fucking basic things like that. Trying to figure that out. And listen, a lot of places have done it. I'd say a quarter of dispensaries, when I go there, they're like, well, this room's going to be hopefully for that. Now, whether that's going to be a reality or not, I don't fucking know. The other thing I would say, this is back to the other question about what separates companies. I would say this is the time to start thinking about how to do something different. Maybe do a drive-through movie theater instead of just another lounge.
Hone in on something. And
do the mini golf course. Try to have 10 mini golf courses that are the weed mini golf course. Because I think we just always hear about this lounge, and I've been to the lounges out west, and I love them. I love that dab rig. Thanks, guy in a bow tie, for lighting my butter to 524 degrees. It's great. I love it. But that's for geeks like us. I think a lot of people, like, I couldn't get my mom to go there, but I could probably get her to go to a driving range. No, I couldn't. But bad example. And I don't play golf. I don't know where that came from.
Pickleball.
That's why
I play pickleball. We could do that.
Well, that's why I still say it's a stigma, because we went to an event like a Cannabis Cup hosted at Mohegan, but then the after party, we're at the VFW in some small town, and like we're smoking in like a fucking 10 by 12 fucking tent. Like we're like outcast of society.
And you're already at the VFW.
You know what I mean? Like,
you're at the VFW.
When is it gonna be like natural? Like, it's safer than booze.
Yeah,
it really is.
Yeah, so you're gonna see, and so now you're gonna see there's the smoke issue. What can people do where? There's a lot of issues that they have to figure out. I don't know if people remember, but right before they banned cigarette smoking in Massachusetts,
remember
they put restaurants out of fucking business.
They had like 3 of them in the school.
How much did one of those cost?
Like $3,000.
So like I knew a small fucking bar in Hyde Park that had to spend $10,000 on I think a couple of those, and they didn't have $10,000. They made them do it, and then they banned smoking right after.
That company went out of business.
Unbelievable, dude. But
the old okey doke.
That was definitely the okey doke.
Rob was fucking smoking with Abraham Lincoln.
That was one of the last things you didn't touch on. The inception of Talking Joints Memo. What was it like 9 years ago.
Oh, yeah, I
about
mean-
you started the publication with 2 of your friends.
Well, I mean, we started just as a newsletter on the side because wasn't an owner of my newspaper, so we just kind of kept it as our own side thing. And basically, it's kind of funny because, at first the coverage wasn't all ours, so we were aggregating everything. And I could tell you, I used to pay somebody sometimes 3 hours a week just to put. Some of those emails had more than 100 links in them because that's every town in Massachusetts was having meetings, like some of the ones you guys will sit through, but they were a lot more contentious back then. You'd have like screaming matches and fucking this town and that. So that's the big difference, and so to the point where a couple of years went by, that wasn't the case anymore. Ultimately, readers said, you fucking do the work of tell us what we should read instead of just giving us everything. So then we started catering it more of a curated content thing with stuff from ours and other places to now that we have our own website for, again, this is a year now. It's all our content. We'll write about some other people's stuff, but it all goes to Talking Joints Memo. So it's kind of like it's really gone from being a funnel to us.
So people are sending you stuff and you're like reposting it with like a.
Yeah,
in
the alternative media, which is a tough term to use now because the alt-right fucked everything up. But basically, in traditional alternative media, which is not necessarily left or right, but just basically fuck the New York Times and the Globes of the world, the concept is this: it's simple.
The big dogs.
Yeah, we cover shit that they don't cover, and we cover shit that they're covering wrong, right? So an example of the latter would be this heart attack bullshit story.
So
where
raw independent reporting.
Yeah, we go in and I showed like that this why this study had flaws today, whereas everybody else just parroted it. And then the other case, covering stuff that these places don't cover. Those are like actual topics. Prisons, surveillance. These are things that there's no conspiracy. They're just fucking topics that these places don't care about. They don't care about prisons because they don't know anyone in prison. And things like surveillance always end up as convenience for the upper class. So, I'll just give you, I don't want to get into it, but basically one great example of that, since we were talking about Maine and New Hampshire, is and also go out to Western Mass, all those toll gantries, when they put those up. Remember, we didn't have to stop anymore?
Yeah.
The fucking...
They send you a bill in the mail?
Oh, the television news. I remember watching them on the side of the road. Like, hey, we can all go to our summer houses now and we don't have to slow down. Like, nobody thought, what the fuck is going on here? Well, my team, we actually busted... Yeah, there's the privatization of that and all these companies getting paid, but we actually busted the state lying. The state told people that if you had an Easy Pass, that your license plate wasn't going to get scanned. And we're maybe
they all get scanned.
Well, I'm the one who fucking discovered that, my team, and they had actually lied. They lied about it several times, and it was just, and nobody cared. Nobody cared to ask because they were so happy to not have to slow their car down or sit in traffic on Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, but
so do you still do other reporting, not just the Talking Joints Memo?
Yes, I'm mostly as an editor of Binge, Boston Institute for Nonprofit Journalism.
Okay.
But yeah, we did prison reporting. We just did a big surveillance story. Massachusetts State Police are trying to buy a dirt box, which is a Stingray. Stingray basically pretends that it's you're a tech guy. Stingray basically, it's like a terrifying thing. It pretends that it's a cell tower. So they drive around with it, and basically your phone thinks that it's a cell tower, but it's not. It's the fucking Batmobile. And
I thought just the feds had that technology.
No, well, here's basically, Boston police tried to get one, and the city council has a little oversight, but lucky for the Mass State Police, there's literally
just an open channel. They can listen to anybody's stuff if they're in the area, or do you have to be attached to a case with a phone number?
There is no warrants for it to be impossible, because we use the example of Gillette Stadium. If they were to go use it at Gillette Stadium, they would actually intercept every single person, tens of thousands of people, complete warrantless surveillance, violation of the Fourth Amendment up and down, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But these are the things where... and this goes to, we got so many issues like this. But yeah, surveillance is a great example of something that's just barely covered by the big media at all. And this is why I hate these fucking these psychopaths who everything's a conspiracy and fucking lizard people, because you don't need any of that shit. There's so much fucking insidious garbage going on just right under our noses. And that's the kind of stuff we try to pay attention to.
Perfect. Chris Faraone, Talking Joints Memo.
Thanks, sir.
See you later.
Yeah. How you doing?
Perfect.
Wake up in the morning, got a bag on my schedule. Niggas talking, bitches talking, niggas not on my level. Check the time, wrist, rolly, rose gold on the bezel. Grab my keys and get my cell and hit the door with a shovel. It's time to get it out the mud, 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 out the mud. It's time to get it.